Why did the Roman Empire collapse? You know, it is interesting with a question like this because there isn't really a single answer that anybody has completely agreed on. And historians have been arguing about this for centuries. So in my research I've come up with 4 big reasons why the Roman Empire collapsed. So let's go back to the beginning. And we're going to start with the barbarians. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, you're gonna tell me it's all about the barbarians. Come on. Well, actually it is all about the barbarians, but not in the way that you might expect. Because when people talk about the fall of the Roman Empire, they are often talking about one particular moment in time. Usually the deposition of Romulus Augustulus in 476 CE by the Germanic warrior. Well, man, what's his name now? Oh yeah, okay, Odoacer. And the story goes that Odoacer deposed the last Roman emperor in the West and set up his own Germanic kingdom in Italy. And from that moment on, the Roman Empire was no more. And we often think of the deposition of Romulus Augustulus as the definitive end of the Roman Empire. But in fact, the deposition of Romulus Augustulus is not even considered a particularly significant date by many historians today. Mainly because there wasn't really an end to the Roman Empire in the West. In fact, several Roman emperors after Romulus Augustulus tried to take back control of Italy from the Germanic kingdoms that had been set up there, and several of them actually succeeded for at least a little while. So the idea that the Roman Empire fell once and for all in the West in 476 is really just a myth. It's a myth that has been perpetuated by certain kinds of anti-Roman propaganda put out by the Germanic kingdoms that were hostile to the Roman emperors who came after Romulus Augustulus. In fact, it's a myth that became very popular during the Middle Ages, partly because people in the Middle Ages were obsessed with the supposed fall of the year 476 and partly because the Germanic kingdoms that dominated Europe didn't want to be seen as disloyal to the Roman Empire. They wanted to be seen as loyal subjects of the true Roman emperor in the East. So they helped spread this myth that Rome fell in the West in 476. The real reason why the Roman Empire collapsed in the West, though, was because of the complete and utter collapse of the Western Roman army. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman army simply didn't exist anymore. There weren't enough soldiers to raise an army, much less an entire army. So if the Roman Empire collapsed because of the army, then why did the army collapse? Well, it's complicated, but part of the reason was that the army was too expensive. The legions cost a lot of money to maintain, and the Roman treasury just couldn't afford to pay its soldiers anymore. And part of the reason the army got so expensive was because the borders got too long. You see, the Roman Empire was constantly having to fight off invaders along its northern borders, and those invaders were often Germanic peoples. And the Romans solved this problem by offering the Germanic peoples positions in the Roman army, both as soldiers and as officers. And eventually, especially in the late 3rd century, more than half of the soldiers in the Roman army were actually barbarians. This wasn't a bad thing in itself, but it did mean that the army became increasingly expensive. So if you want to blame somebody for the collapse of the Roman Empire, blame the barbarians, not the other way around. Thank you for watching.